Welcome viewers to the Organizational Theory, Design and Structure. In this lecture, we will be discussing about evolution of organizational theory. So, learning objectives for evolution of organizational theory is introduction to management theory, why study management theory, historical events which are significant to the study of management, will focus on Adam Smith's publication of Wealth of Nation, Industrial Revolution, evolution of management theory from 1890s to 2025, evolution of management theory from 1890s to 2025. To begin with, the history of management and evolution of organizational theories and principles, we will discuss about the role of Industrial Revolution in the development of management thought and identify the captains of industry and their role in management evolution. Understanding the history of management and evolution of organizational theories and principles, we will discuss about the role of Industrial Revolution in the development of management thought and identify captains of industry and their role in evolution of management concept. Understand what is required for an organization to be sustainable. What is required for an organization to be great institutions? We will discuss certain examples. Evolution of industry in more details we will discuss. Major approaches of management starts with historical background, understanding about the early examples of management, Adam Smith, Industrial Revolution. We will also discuss about the classical approaches of management, scientific principles of management, general administrative theory. Further moving forward to quantitative approach of management, behavioral approach of management, discussing about the early advocates of behavioral theory, Hawthorne studies, organizational behavior approach. Lastly, we will also discuss about the contemporary theories of management like systems theory, contingency approach. So, moving forward with the discussion of management history, we have seen that the history has an impact on evolution of management theory. People have long been writing about how to make organizations more efficient and effective. Since long before term such as management has come into the common usage, evolution of management theory is associated with the matters of relationship at particular times in history. Two prominent historical events that were significant to the evolution of management theory is Adam Smith's publication of a book called Wealth of Nations and Industrial Revolution. The context of Industrial Revolution has a huge impact on the development of management theory. Historical events which have been significant to the study of management starts with Adam Smith's Wealth of Nation. 1776, Adam Smith, a Scottish philosopher, published a book, Wealth of Nations, emphasizing on the economic advantages that organizations and society would gain from the division of labor to increase productivity. Division of labor involved breakdown of jobs into narrow and repetitive tasks, which emphasizes on specialization. People become efficient in handling the responsibilities. This increased productivity by increasing workers' efficiency, skills and dexterity. They become more proficient handling their respective tasks. Division of labor continues to be a popular concept as a principle of managing work. Further, Industrial Revolution has also a huge impact on the development of the primitive theories of management. Further, with the changes in the Industrial Revolution or further with the movement of Industrial Revolution from Industry 1.0 to Industry 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 and 5.0, as we have already discussed earlier, that Industrial Revolution has a great impact on the development of management concept, definition of organizations and how the organizations give a view, organizations develop different views on the employees and the employee relationship at the workplace. The second important event is the Industrial Revolution, which started in the late 18th century. Machine power substituted human power. Earlier, the industries were run with human power, horsepower, but the machine power substituted human power, economical to manufacturing goods in factories. The focus was on efficiency of machines. Large efficient factories needed managers to forecast demands, to assess how many goods would be produced, ensure enough material was on hand, and assign tasks to individuals. The increase in managers necessitated development of formal theories to guide managers to run large organizations. With the advancement of or with the growth of organizations and number of employees and with the enormous number of size of the organization, the organizations needed formal theories, guidelines to make it more efficient. Management thought developed in mid 1800s, which is parallel with industrial revolution. There was a shift from agrarian to industrialized society, and focus was on power, transportation and communication. The focus was on steam engine as a major source of power. Transportation was through canals, rails, railroads, and communication changed the way organizations functioned. The communication was through telephone, the communication network has also impacted the way the organizations have made themselves, or organizations, communication networks have transformed and which has impacted organizations and its functioning. Schedules, tasks, workloads, compensation and safety, communication efficiency were hotly debated topics in the 20th century. The focus was on how schedules have been prepared so that factories are efficient, tasks have been divided, there is a division of labor, there is an equal deployment of workloads, compensation have been given adequately so that there is no unrest, and safety of employees was the prime concern. All these changes required adoption of new management skills. So, captains of industry in the last quarter of 19th century who have further steered how organizations would work in future. Some names which emerge: John D. Rockefeller, who was a prominent name in the oil industry, James Duke in tobacco, and Andrews Carnegie in the steel manufacturing. Vanderbilt was in the steamships and railroads. Their collective contribution helped shape how we view business today. The captains of industry like Rockefeller, Duke, Carnegie, Vanderbilt have collectively contributed to shape the industry, how we view the business today. In contrast to the non-judgmental attitude of previous generations, previous leaders of industry, they pursued profit and self-interest above all. The focus of the management researchers was mostly concerned towards profit orientation and self-interest above all. So, with this backdrop, we will now focus on evolution of management approaches from 1950s to 2010, how the management concept has evolved over a period of time. In the decade 1950s, the management approach which was dominantly practiced was management by objectives. Program evaluation and review technique, then employee assistance programs were also given emphasis. 1960s, organizational development approach was given due importance. Sensitivity training and T group or sensitivity training was given importance. The managerial grid became the prime concern, concern for staff and concern for results. 1970s focused on quality of work-life movement, job enrichment, quality circle. 1980s, the concern was organizational culture, total quality management, international standards organizations. 9000 series, ISO 9000 became a dominant view during 1980s. 1990s focused on business process reengineering, autonomous self-directed work groups, high performance organizations. lean manufacturing. 2000s worked on the concept of learning organizations, employee engagement, disruptive innovation. Further, in the next decade, 2010s, high reliability organizations, built to change organizations, networked enterprise, big data, data analytics and artificial intelligence became very prominent. So, concluding the discussion on evolution of management theory, over the years management theory has undergone many changes, many transformations in intellectuals, and their contribution have introduced new theories in the field from 1890s to 2010. The focus started with scientific management theory, administrative management theory, behavioral approaches to management, management science theory, and organizational environment theory. All these theories have contributed to the domain of organization and management in some way or the other, which have led to efficient functioning of organizations. To further understand the evolution of management theory and their contribution to the field of management and organizations, we will try to see how the theory have evolved right from the classical theory of management. Classical theory of management has three dominant streams: scientific management, proposed by Frederick Winslow Taylor in 1910s, bureaucratic theory of management, bureaucratic theory given by Weber in 1900s, process management theory given by Fayol in 1900s. Process management theory is also called administrative theory of management. Neoclassical theory further discussed on human relations approach by Mayo. In 1930s, behavioral science theory, Maslow and McGregor in 1940s. And moving further, the modern management theory has evolved, which has again given different contributions to management science and organization and environment. So, management science theory discusses about operations research, management information systems, operations management, total quality management, empowerment, re-engineering. These concepts have evolved over a period of time. When the older theories still remain, new concepts have started creeping in the discussion of, in the context of management and organizations, to make it more sustainable, to focus more on productivity, as well as also the concern of employees have been there, concern about the social systems in the organization still remain. Organizations and environment, how they interact with each other, has been discussed with organizational environment theory. The prime focus of this theory has been systems approach, contingency approach and multivariate approach. So, evolution of management theory started with 1800s to 2010 and forward. There have been a prime focus areas in the entire evolution, with the nature of society being agrarian in the pre-1800s or 1800s time period. The agrarian society, the locus of work was farm and home. The nature of work was physical, agriculture or craft, and the key resource have been land. Management and organizations theory at that time was pre-scientific in nature. Assumptions about human nature: the human being was considered to be an economic person. Focus of management control has been patterns of physical movement and precise way of performing tasks. There was a precise or well defined way of performing task, and role of management was to exercise control on employee behavior. So, there was a control mechanism which worked pre-1800s to 1800s. Further, in the time period of 1800 to 1930, the focus of the society, nature of society was industrial, as there is a shift from agrarian to industrial oriented society. The locus of work was factory, not the farm and home. Nature of work was physical, manufacturing was the prime concern. Key resource was machines, machinery was helping the industries to have maximum productivity. And management and organizational theory dominated here the classical theory of management. The classical theory, generally the administrative theory, scientific management theory, structuralist approach, the structures of an organization, division of labor, these concepts have dominated during the classical theory of management. Assumptions about human nature, human being economist or economic view of person. A focus of managerial control was patterns of physical movement, precise way of performing work, that means there is one best way of doing a work. Role of management was again control mechanism. So, the entire viewpoint from 1800 pre-1800s to 1930s, the focus was on management by control mechanism. Further moving from 1930s to 60s, the dominance of neoclassical movement started with focus on human relations, behavioral approach and assumption about human nature. Human being was considered to be a social being, cannot work in isolation, and the profit was not the prime concern of an employee, or money is not the prime concern of an employee. There can be a concern for earning money, but people have to have human relations or relationship in the workplace also dominated. So, focus of managerial control was patterns of social interaction, how they interact, how individuals interact in the workplace. And the management role dominated as maintaining employees in the social systems, how people can be given responsibilities in the organization so that there is maximum interaction, there is better interpersonal relationship in the workplace. So, the prime concern of management was not top down approach, but the concern for human relations have dominated in the years 1930s to 60s. Further, during 1960s, the nature of work was on the social systems in the workplace. The management and organizational theory focused on modern management science, assumptions about human nature. As we see that human beings have different needs, money is also one of the concerns, money, human relations, but this is just to keep an individual going. But as the mankind progresses, the focus moves towards the higher motivational needs like self-actualizing persons, where they want to do something more, something innovative, they want to contribute based on their knowledge, skills and efficiency. Role of management became facilitating employee development. It was not exercising control, not just maintaining employees' relationship in the workplace, but the focus shifted towards how to facilitate employee development. The focus is on development of human capital. 1970s to 2000, there is again a shift in how the industries have changed, the viewpoints of managers have changed, as well as how the employees have started behaving, which is called, this era 1970s to 2010 has been called post-industrial society. The locus of work is not just factory, but it has moved towards office cyberspace. There is automation, there is introduction of new technology, and nature of work has become abstract or more conceptual rather than physical, or rather than more machine oriented. It has become conceptual, or it has become knowledge oriented. Key resource is not just land and machinery, but it is knowledge, knowledge of individuals, how individuals contribute to the organization through their knowledge, through their experience, and what they can contribute for the organization's development of organization, how they can contribute the organization through their knowledge, experience and education. Assumption about human nature, there are different assumptions about the individual. Individuals are considered to be complex individuals, complex persons. They are affected, their motivational level, their performance is affected by different aspects in the workplace. not just one aspect, like the money cannot be just a motivator. The environment of organization also influences performance of an individual. The leader and his influence on individual, his level of motivation depends on several aspects, several elements in the workplace. So, employees are considered to be complex individuals. Their knowledge is the prime concern, and they contribute to the organization, they add value to the organization by adding new knowledge or create new knowledge, create new information through their knowledge, experience and expertise. The dominant management theories and management and organizational theories are systems theory, contingency theory and organizational behavior theory. Focus of management control is on patterns of attention, patterns of connectivity. There is more focus on network association with other organizations, and the role of management is ensure organizational wide integration. Within the organization, the focus is on connectivity, establishing connectivity with different departments and also facilitate inter-organizational collaboration. So, in this era 1970s to 2000s, the focus is on productivity, performance, organizational image, identity, sustainability, and how do they do it? This is through the automation, improvising or with the advancement of technology. As the nature of work has become more knowledge oriented, knowledge centric organizations have evolved, and they have discussed about, the management discusses about people as a complex individual whose performance is not just associated with money or the human relationship, but there are several factors which can improve the human performance or the employee performance. So, there are dominant views called systems theory, contingency theory, organizational view of behavior theory, and organization ensures that there is a network of association within the organization, as well as they establish relationship with other organizations, or which is called a strategic alliance with other organizations, so that they can capitalize on the strengths of others, strengths they can establish a sustainable organizations. So, there is a discussion overall about the management which has changed from, there is a shift from the classical theory of management to the modern theory of management. The classical theory emphasized on a closed model, behavioral bureaucratic theory, scientific management theory, administrative or generic management theory. They have been discussing about the scientific way of scientific method of management, the bureaucracy, rules and regulations, and the administrative principles of management. And further, in the as we move towards a modern management, the focus is on human relations, organizational development, how people can be developed using different methods, and the organization is considered as a unit, as a network of association, and there is an environment, and organizations are working in sync with its external environment. So, closed model, as it discussed about classical theory of management, Weber's bureaucratic theory, Taylor's Frederick Taylor's scientific management theory, one best method of doing a work, administrative management theory, which focused on the rules and regulations, and then there is a discussion on the neoclassical theory of management, human relations, organizational development. Organization is considered as a unit. There are dominant viewpoints which have emerged during the discussion. There are most prominent discussions are on classical theory of management in the late 1800s, which discussed on bureaucratic, scientific and administrative principles, behavioral theory, which is dominant during the 1930s, 40s and 50s, or the neoclassical theory of management. Systems theory dominated during 50s, 60s and 1970s, contingency theory during the 60s, 70s and 80s, and quality concept has been the prime concern during 1980s and 1990s. Moving forward, the classical theory of management has, its assumption is people are rational individuals. People take decisions based on a science behind any decision, or people are rational, they are logical. Scientific management given by Frederick Winslow Taylor, and there is another viewpoint given by Frank and Lillian Galbraith. The Galbraiths have emphasized on time and motion studies. Administrative principle of management has been given by Henry Fayol and Mary Parker Follett. There is the third dominant view has been given by bureaucratic organizations proposed by Max Weber. So, we will just highlight on the focus of these classical theories of management. Bureaucratic management emphasized on the overall organization, focus on individual workers' productivity, and administrative management focused on the functions of management, how the organizations function or the various functions of management. So, these are the major contributions of the classical theory of management. Scientific management proposed by Taylor, Frederick Winslow Taylor, focused on improving efficiency through scientific analysis of various work processes. Standardization of task, time and motion studies given by Frank and Lillian Galbraith, administrative management concept given by Fayol, emphasized on the structure of organization and functions of management, planning, organizing, directing and controlling. Bureaucratic concept, bureaucratic management theory or the model has been proposed by Max Weber, and which proposed a hierarchical structure with a clear lines of authority, formal rules, regulations and impersonal relationship. Classical theory has been developed in the first half of 20th century, represents merger of scientific management, bureaucratic theory and administrative theory. It is rigid and mechanistic. Rational approach is based on transparency, adjustability, top-down management and control, professional and rational behavior without disruptive emotional relationship. Neoclassical theory of management emphasized on human relations, behavioral theory, social systems theory. The focus of social systems theory is organizing and managing human resources in various social processes, in various groups, how people behave, importance of individuals as an important element in the systems environment. Neoclassical theory, also called behavioral approach of management, was discussed in mid 20th century. The focus of human relations movement is to recognize the importance of social and psychological factors in the workplace, highlighting the impact of employee motivation, how people can be motivated, employee motivation through various use of various theories, morale and relationship on productivity. The impact of highlighting the impact of employee motivation, employee morale and relationship on productivity. Hawthorne studies came next to human relations movement, demonstrated that worker productivity could be influenced by social and psychological factors beyond the physical environs in the working conditions, beyond physical working conditions. Social systems theory emphasized on socialization and education, interest to the early social scientist, contributed to orientation of classical sociology on structural stability. What is the contribution of social systems theory? Until 1960s, classical sociology predominantly focused on communication of social experience to the younger generations and transmission of organizations' culture, norms and value orientation. Later part of 20th century, concept of socialization and education have dominated the concern of the management scholars with processes of change and how to adapt to change. This evolution laid the foundation of social systems theory, an extension of general systems theory. It is an extension of the systems theory which has been discussed in the previous section. What is social systems theory? Contribution of distinguished scholars Talcott Parsons 1902 to 1979. Societies are broadly shared and internally coherent systems of norms and value orientation. Within the organization, there are different dominant cultures, and this normative system, norms, cultures, traditions, these normative system, social cooperation is required for social systems integration. It emphasized on the cooperation, and further Niklas Luhmann 1927 to 1998, social systems create and maintain their own boundaries and structures, operating with their logic and communication patterns. So, conclusively, the social systems theory talks about organization is a social system. They are about the communication of decisions, not just the actions of individuals. How decisions have been communicated, shared with other individuals in the social systems within various processes is very important. Further, we will discuss about modern management approaches which started in the late 20th century till date. Quantitative approach to management utilized mathematical models, statistics, and computer simulations to aid in decision making and problem solving. Systems theory viewed organization as a complex system with interconnected parts, emphasizing the importance of understanding how different elements interact with each other so that organizations are able to perform most effectively. Contingency theory emphasized on the most effective management approach depending on specific situation and a context. In each context, an organization would behave differently. Modern developments have focused on total quality management, concepts of re-engineering and other approaches that emphasize continuous improvement. So, the focus has shifted from the productivity to continuous improvement, learning, customer focus and how organizations adapt to change. Management approaches which have been discussed so far, to conclude, there are different time frames, time periods during which the management has evolved and their focus have shifted over a period of time. So, classical theory of management, it started with 1880s. Traditional rules of thumbs are replaced by procedures developed after careful study of an individual at work. Administrative management focused on functions of management and principles of administration. It was a concept which was dominant during 1940s. Bureaucratic management came in the year 1920s and it replaces traditional leadership with a legal leadership. The concept of authority came into picture. Neoclassical theory of management, it focused on human relations, 1930s, workers' attitude associated with productivity. The behavioral science approach, 1950s, understand human behavior in organizations. Further, management science approach has come into being, operations which emphasized on operations research, 1940s, use of mathematics and mathematical approaches, statistical approaches to solve management problems. Production and operations management in 1940s dominated the focus of the operations and control of production process that transforms resources into finished goods and services, and the modern management principles have been systems approach dominated in 1950s, contingency approach in 1960s. The systems approach considers organization as a system that transforms input into output while in constant interaction with its environment. Contingency approach applies management principles and practices as dictated by unique characteristics of each situation. So, there has been a transformation over a period of time from scientific management school, classical organizational theory, behavioral school of thought, management science, systems approach, contingency approach and dynamic engagement approach. So, summarizing this discussion, our focus is this lesson we have discussed about the basis of evolution of management thought with the focus on a history of management, how the context or the industrial revolution has influenced the concept of management, the viewpoint of management researchers about organization and its impact on performance or efficiency and effectiveness, and how it is influencing how different theories have changed over a period of time. Its influence on the theories and the principles to help organization being more efficient and effective. Thank you.